What kind of rationale goes into the zoning? Because, like I said, it seems like it would be a shoe-in, like it would be a really natural thing to allow for corner stores to open up in residential areas.
Part of it is a political problem. Everyone wants to have a grocery store nearby. No one wants to have their house be adjacent to the grocery store, right? No one wants Walmart to be their next door neighbor. That's part of the reason why we don't have more of it, is because people don't actually accept when there are proposals to put some commerce closer to residential. But I don't think that's really the question that you're asking. Really what it is that all that discussion about where should grocery stores be able to be is just preempted by the fact that our current zoning for the cities we live in, if you can just imagine in your mind a map of your city, it's already drawn out. There's boxes that say people live here, commerce resides here, and it's already mapped out. So even if someone wanted to open up a small corner store that everyone would want, that everyone would actually want to live right next door to, you can't, because your zoning ordinance has the force of law, and it would make it illegal for you to purchase property and to construct a small corner store. You wouldn't be able to do it unless you got the law changed. If everyone got together and actually signed a petition saying that they want a corner store in their neighborhood, that's something that people could do. You can have an initiative process and make changes to the local zoning in that way. Another way that you could do it that most people kind of understand is possible is you could reach out to your city councilor who represents you in your district, and you could propose to them and see if they're willing to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for that. Again, a lot of it is people generally don't understand what zoning is, and they don't understand kind of the mechanics of how you could amend the zoning ordinances. And to be frank, it's very hard to do. And it could require a lot of time and result in very little success unless there's a supermajority of people who are all happy to see it happen and are willing to do some work to make it happen. Here's a secret. There's not a good reason for the current zoning. Most of the time there's a bad reason for the current zoning. And it's not that someone's being malicious with the current zoning, but largely we are just inheriting zoning decisions that happened 20, 30, 40, even 50 years ago. Someone sat down and kind of made these first maps, and over time they just changed slightly, or those with enough interest and time and willingness to get something constructed that's high dollar, think a big high-rise apartment. Those people are willing to cut through the red tape to get their high-rise apartment rezoned downtown, right? And it's very appropriate that you would have an apartment downtown, but because we're relying on zoning codes that were written so long ago, we're forcing the developers and the builders essentially to go through a very long process to do something that everyone accepts is perfectly reasonable. Potential solutions could be one direction or the other. And by that I mean pressing reset on all of our zoning maps in Utah and getting everyone together, all the stakeholders, the neighborhood leaders, the city councilors, planning commissioners, some from the business community, getting everyone together and coming up with a brand new zoning map would be one of the best possible solutions to this problem. Because again, just inheriting what we've done 10, 15 years ago is at the core of the problem. But to your question of, well, hey, what if we had a more flexible system? That's actually another solution that we could explore. If it wasn't so difficult to get the current zoning changed and there was more flexibility, meaning a person could come in and fill out a form and describe what they're doing, and it wasn't this Herculean effort that would take 8 months and cost them hundreds of hours to do, then we would see a lot more kind of what I call micro zoning changes. Either of those solutions, either the reset or just more flexibility, would be infinitely better than what we have right now. Yeah, it's one of those sleeper issues. We understand that there's laws or things that govern who can build things where, but until you start looking under the hood and seeing how it actually works, we kind of make the assumption that what we have is probably good and proper. And the opposite is true. The more you look under the hood and see what zoning system we have, it's there's just we could go on for hours about reforms that would be relatively minor that you could get a lot of people to agree with, but because it's one of those issues that's not as sexy on its face as a national election or a hot button social issue, there's some movement. I will say zoning is kind of having a moment right now if you know kind of where to look, and that's mostly because there's a housing crisis. And once you start looking at the reasons for the housing crisis and you spend some effort and time, you quickly learn it's not the developer's fault. It's not that they're just making $500,000 on every home they build. That there's a supply problem, and that zoning is at the core, at the heart of why we have a supply problem.